Now, this is also something you need to understand or you need to look to when you read through the PYQs. Because if you understand the vocabulary used by UPSC, let me tell you from my experience, you will be able to get close to 20 to 25 extra marks in the prelims.
What are those X factor ingredients that you could put in an answer at various sections?
This is the X factor that you need in your answer.
One good source of current affairs. It can be Civilsdaily.
You need to have that X factor in your answer.
With the help of X factor notes.
This is the best notes you can have.
I used to read their X factor notes.
The questions are very good and even the answers were very detailed and they were, I extracted a lot of content from them.
Hi everyone, Sreejay here. As all of you know, we have close to 180 days left for prelims. So today is the right time to ramp up your preparation for the prelims. Now how do we start for the same? We go through the PYQs, we understand the subject, we understand the topics which are important, and we understand the important micro themes as well. But is it the only thing that you need to understand? What about the vocabulary used by UPSC? Why does UPSC introduce certain words such as can, may, all, none, primarily, mainly, and all of the other extreme words? Now, this is also something you need to understand or you need to look to when you read through the PYQs. Because if you understand the vocabulary used by UPSC, let me tell you from my experience, you will be able to get close to 20 to 25 extra marks in the prelims. Now, that is exactly what this session is about. I'm going to detailedly tell you why each and every word introduced by UPSC matters and how you can master the same. Now, before going into the session, let me tell you something about myself. If there is one day in the particular calendar year which I am always looking to, is the UPSC Prelims Day. Not because I attempt the exam, but because I am always fascinated and amazed by how UPSC introduces certain questions. Or has UPSC changed the logic? What is the vocabulary used by UPSC in order to make us think? So, when you analyze the same, is the UPSC purely on the basis of content? No. UPSC questions are not like other UPSC or BPPSC examinations wherein you will get a lot of factual questions. No. UPSC questions are beautifully crafted in order for us to make us think. Now, that is exactly what this session is about. Now, stay with me for the next 15 minutes because you will understand why UPSC introduces vocabularies. Now, before going into the same, let me tell you a story about one of my mentee who cleared the prelims of 2025. Now, after the exam, she texted me that, "Sir, earlier I used to read the PYQs purely for content on a question paper format, but it was through Sir's PYQ sessions and notes that I came to understand how to analyze the PYQs, like the repeated themes, clues, and the language of the question." Now, in her case, her understanding of language of the questions have significantly made the difference and helped her clear the 2025 prelims. Now, this is exactly what this session is about, and you will understand after we go through a couple of questions. Now, let's try this question. This was in the 2025 prelims, and most of you have made it wrong here. Now, when you look at the same, you will think that, sir, in statement 2 and 3, we can see two extreme words here. Now, therefore, these two statements might be incorrect. But you are not looking at the statement 1, wherein UPSC have introduced the word good at an attractive tone. Now, when you read a statement assertion question, you have to read with respect to because, right? Now, why is statement 1 happening? Because. And here also you have to read with respect to because. Now, why did UPSC introduce the word activated carbon is a good and an attractive tool? Now, when you read the same, it is a good and an attractive tool because it exhibits a large surface area and strong potential. Now, when you read the same, does it seem very extreme for you? Why is it a good and an attractive tool? Because activated carbon can be easily synthesized. Now, does it seem very extreme for you? Why is it a good and attractive tool? Because it has a large surface area, because it can be easily synthesized. Now, that is the reason why, in order to make you help your elimination or help you make you think, UPSC have introduced the word attractive and UPSC have introduced a good and attractive tool as a phrase here. Now, this is the way you have to think. So, why is it a good and attractive tool? Because it has a large surface area and a strong potential. Also, because it can be easily synthesized. Therefore, the answer to this question was option A. Okay? Now try this question. Why did UPSC introduce the word sedition has become my relation? Now you might feel that this 2025 question is merely a factual question. But what is UPSC trying to do? What is the meaning of the word sedition? So the sedition means the use of words or actions that are intended to encourage the people to act against the government. Now which among the following four options is Gandhi going against the government here? Now, the Gandhi is going against the government by violating a SART law, right? So, therefore, the answer to this question was option B, because the word sedition can be directly related to violating a SART law. So, this is the way you have to think. Let's take a couple of more examples. You will understand why the vocabulary matters. Now, try the 838 question. Now, why did UPSC ask this question? Is it a purely factual question? No. Whenever a term-based question comes, we have to go for word deconstruction. Now, when you deconstruct the same, pumped storage hydropower. Now, what does it mean? Pumped storage. We are pumping water into a dam or a reservoir and making it a storage. And what is that water used for? It is used for creating or generating hydropower in the later phase. So we are storing water by pumping it from a reservoir and we are storing it to later use it for hydropower. Now among the four, which satisfies the same? We can go with option C here because it has long duration energy storage. Energy is stored for a long time because it can be used whenever required. Now this is what beautiful questions of UPSC are because it makes you think. What about this one? Why did UPSC introduce the world's largest tropical peatland and worth more 3 years of global carbon emissions? If it was the world's largest tropical peatland, you would have heard of the same, right? Now, have you ever heard of Rio de Plata here? No. Have you ever heard of Kikori Basin? No. So, therefore, the answer would be between A and B. And here, Congo Basin is the peatland. Therefore, you can go with option B here. Now, this is how, by introducing certain words such as world's largest, which holds 3/4 or 2/3 of the global carbon emissions, UPSC is helping you to get to the answer. If it is something very largest, then it will be famous. So therefore, you have to go between those options which are famous among them. Clear, everyone? Now, moving on to the next question here. Why did UPSC introduce the word used in making many consumer products here? Now, when you read the first statement, you might feel that this is something very extreme because PFS are found to be widespread. And usually we have the habit of making the extreme state incorrect, right? But read the first statement along with what is given here. Now it is given that it is used in making many consumer products. If it is used in making many consumer products, then it would be found widespread, right? So therefore, when you read along with the same, statement 1 does not seem very extreme wrong. So therefore here, statement 1 is also correct. Now, why in 2025 UPSC introduced the word several folds here? If UPSC wanted to make it correct, UPSC could have just said that well oxygenated surface water contains higher oxygen than in atmosphere air. Right. It could have just said that it contains higher oxygen. Now, why did UPSC introduce the word several folds there? It was basically to make this incorrect, right? Because oxygenated water does not contain several folds atmospheric oxygen than atmospheric air. So therefore, this statement becomes incorrect. Now, even in 2025, why did UPSC introduce industry account for more than 5% of global carbon emissions? Why 5%? UPSC could have just said that studies indicate that carbon emissions from cement manufacturing, cement industry contributes to global carbon emissions. UPSC could have just said that. Why UPSC provided 5%? Because the reasons should be that it costs the 5%. Now statement 3, limestone is converted into clinker process during cement manufacturing. This releases a significant amount of carbon emissions. Therefore, it is the reason that more than 5% of cement industry is contributing to carbon emissions. What about statement 1 here? Statement 2 here. Does silica bearing clay releases significant amount of carbon emissions for it to contribute to 5% of global carbon emissions? No, it might release probably, let's say, ignorance. UPSC can never say that it does not release 0.001% of carbon emissions. But is it the reason that more than 5% of global carbon emissions come from the cement industry? No. That is the reason why statement 2, even though it is correct, it does not satisfy statement 1, and therefore B was the answer here. Clear, everyone? That is why UPSC have introduced an extreme word in the first statement here. Now moving on, why did UPSC introduce the word usually in 2025? UPSC could have just said that which of the above make up battery cathodes? Why usually make up battery cathodes? It's because it has to be usually used. There cannot be any experiment going on, or we cannot use our 1% logic here. Maybe in China, maybe in a village in North Korea, maybe in an industry in Japan. Can we use that logic here? No, it has to be usually used. So that is why here UPSC used the word usually here and made graphite as incorrect, because the graphite is not, it might be used in maybe a research is going on. Maybe it can be used in a factory in North Korea. We never know. But is it usually used? No. That is why UPSC introduced the word usually and made graphite incorrect here. Now moving on here, why UPSC introduced the word directly here? Krishna River directly feeds Kolleru Lake. Does Krishna River have any relation with Kolleru Lake? No. That is why UPSC introduced the word directly here and made it extreme as well. So one thing that I want to say is that among the options here, why did UPSC introduce the word extensive here? Which of the following is the best example for repeated faults to present a extensive marshland? If it is something extensive, then we would have heard about the same, right? Is Naubada song very extensive, very famous? No. Is Marakanam very extensive? No. Bittarganiga has no relation with repeated sea level and rising water level. So therefore here, Run of Kutch is something very famous. Therefore, it can classify under the meaning of extensive here. So that is why here D is the answer. Now let me tell you, this is the way you have to question. Why did UPSC introduce the word necessarily here? Or why did it introduce the word mainly, effectively, actively, immensely, dried up? Why primarily? UPSC could have just introduced high clouds reflect solar radiation and cool the surface of the earth and make it correct, right? Because probably the high clouds at least even deflect one slightest of solar ray and cool the surface of the earth. But does it primarily reflect the solar radiation? No. It's basically the low clouds which primarily reflect the solar radiation. If the word primarily was not there, then the statement would have been correct. High clouds reflect solar radiation and cool the surface of the earth. Maybe at least one ray would have been reflected. But that is why UPSC introduced the word primarily and made it incorrect. Right. One of the most important, why not important? Or why not one of the, right? Why active, drastic? UPSC could have just introduced all India participation of lawyers. And why active? Because in these questions, extreme words was introduced and UPSC made all of them incorrect. Why in this question, machines were introduced in large numbers, railway lines were paid in many parts? Why all these different extreme words? UPSC introduced them, as I said before, to make them extreme. So this is the way you have to see the vocabulary. Why does UPSC introduce a significant role? None. The main focus and not one of its function. Some. So let me tell you, the objective of all the test series out there should not be to randomly share you, should not be to randomly train you for the content. No, because content is not what UPSC is testing for in most of the questions. Obviously, close to 40 to 45 questions you will get through your content. But there are close to 30 to 40 questions which you need to use your logic and get to the answer. Now let me tell you, this is where the Dominate differs. Dominate will also be asking you questions with respect to micro themes. Also, Dominate will be training you in order to how to counter these vocabularies. In our everyday 50 questions exam, 10 questions will be logical. Out of that, 5 would be easy logical questions and 5 would be hard logical questions. wherein I will be explaining to you on how to crack these on the basis of vocabulary. So learning vocabularies should be on your primary objective, because let me tell you, as I told in the beginning, if you learn the vocabulary, you will be clearing prelims, because that is one confidence that I have, and that is the confidence that helped me to clear 4 prelims consecutively, right? Now, how do you learn the same? First of all, you can join the Dominate, wherein we will be doing 50 questions. Out of that, 10 would be logical. And in the weekends, we will be doing 100 questions. Out of that, 30 questions will be logical. We'll be having a discussion regarding the same as well. Also, one more thing is, in case of Dominate Prelims, we have a 1-month logical training program. For the first time in India, we are launching a 1-month logical elimination program. And the first batch have been completed here. As you all know, we had the batch from 3rd November to 21st November here. That has been completed. But don't worry, if you want to watch the same, if you want to watch it live, we have the second batch coming from 2nd February 28th. Or if you want to watch it Abhi, then you can buy the recorded classes also. And as one of my students has pointed out, hi sir, Bhargav here. The logical classes were really helpful. It builds me so much confidence. This will be my second attempt. I wish I had this logics and elimination techniques the last year. I would have cleared the prelims last year itself. Now, this is the biggest reward that as a teacher we can get. It's the comments, it's the suggestions, it's the appreciations from you which actually motivates us to move forward as well and bring these innovative stuff into the coaching industry, which has been redundant in the previous years. So if you want to improve your vocabulary, do join Dominate, enroll for the elimination course, and do with me the 50 questions on a daily basis and understand the vocabulary and the logics to the same. So thank you everyone.